a haunting Venice and its Poveglia Island in Italy. Romantic for some, creepy and ramshackle to a certain crowd, Venice has more faces than the masks that are worn during the annual Carnival of Venice. One set of Venetian masks, the Medico della Peste, is recognizable for its long, hollow beak and circular eye sockets, having origins from the plague doctor. Already creepy in design, this mask, along with Venice itself, is historically tied with the tragedy of the plague. Since Venice is a series of islands along with the Venetian lagoon, over the centuries many grievous mishappenings had washed its shores. During the plague, the island of Poveglia became a cruel literal dumping ground for the residents of Venice who were sick from the plague. Poveglia Island earned the nickname the Island of No Return. For a reason. It didn't matter if the person was alive. They would be lumped in together with piles of bodies annexed away from the main city. Then in the 1920s, Poveglia Island was retransformed once again, this time into an inhuman psychiatric asylum. Stories since that decade have long been passed down, including one about a doctor who had illegally experimented on his patients with lobotomies. That same doctor then jumped from the bell tower, which you can still see poking out from the overgrown nature that has taken over the island, due to being driven to insanity himself by the hauntings of ghosts. Poveglia Island today still stands, but its land will be forever heinously marked by tortured souls of the 160,000 deaths that had occurred on it over the years. The psychiatric asylum of Ospedale Psichiatrico di Volterra in Italy. Just because you can visit somewhere nowadays, even during the day, doesn't mean you should. Such a place is the leftover abandoned institution in Volterra, Italy. If you do dare to venture there today, you'll see leftover wheelchairs, gurney with straps, and decaying walls still standing from 1888 when the psychiatric asylum was founded. Patients of Ospedale Psichiatrico di Volterra were there mostly against their own will, locked up away because they had mental health problems that weren't fully understandable by the doctors or society, even as far back to the 1950s and 60s. Thus was the booming era of the asylum, when it tripled in size to become one of the largest psychiatric institutions in the country. Behind these doors, though, were malpractice and mistreatment, from forcibly inducing comas using insulin to common electroshock treatments administered. What was meant to be a place for mental health instead was a sickening reality closer to prison, where bars and grates were installed in the windows, and patients were mistreated like inmates and nurses were regarded as guards. Today you can still see the imprint of its harrowing past as you wander through the arched door frames and crumbling paint of Ospedale Psichiatrico di Volterra. The satanic haunted mansion of Cortijo Jurado, Málaga in Spain. There's always something troubling or dark secrets kept with old money families, isn't there? The tale of this influential family, the Heredia from Málaga, one of the wealthiest families in Andalusia at the time, adds to that. The 19th century Cortijo Jurado, also locally known as Casa Encantada, is a huge grand estate that now has been left into a crumbling haunted mansion. There's science and proven evidence. Then there are some things in this world that can't be explained. Paranormal phenomena such as whispering of voices, ghostly sightings, and a cursed film. Back in 2000, a director shot a short film at Cortijo Jurado, only for one of the actors to fall through an elevator shaft and upon being discharged from the hospital, also disappear. No one knows where the actor is to this day. After filming, the hard drives and backups of the film were unexplainably damaged. This all adds to the lore around this mansion. For as long as the Heredia family has been living in this estate, there have been rumors about how the family, of high society grace and bourgeois standing, kidnaps young girls and inducts them through satanic rituals along with painful torture. They say that those bodies are buried within the mansion, underground as well as wherever they may fit. Witch's Cave in Zugarramurdi. This gigantic karst tunnel, carved out as a natural cavern within walking distance from the town of Zugarramurdi in Basque Country, was the site of rituals, incantations, and devil-worshipping during the Inquisition. The cave runs over 120 meters deep with different galleries that you can explore. From here it's easy to see that it was an ideal space for pagan rituals. To this day, the town honors this coven tradition and holds its own recreation of a bombastic feast celebrating the dark arts in the Zugarramurdi caves. While no Latin tongues are actually used to conjure anything from another astral plane, during the summer solstice, the townsfolk light up bonfires within the caves, roast lambs, and drink copious amounts of wine in honor of this occult legacy. If you're here, definitely check out the Witch Museum, to learn more about the witching hour during the Inquisition. Dracula's Castle, Romania. It looks idyllic as it does macabre. The Bran Castle, which sits on a rocky cliff surrounded by a dense forest, home to myths of undead curses and literary legends of blood-sucking creatures of the night. Bran Castle is also known as Dracula's Castle. Count Dracula is a creation of Bram Stoker's gothic horror Dracula novel, which has become a staple image whenever people think of vampires. In the eerie outbacks of Transylvania, Bran Castle is also a fortress that started off in the 13th century as a wooden citadel. There are viewpoints to this day of mountainous peaks that you can see when you visit. Each year, the Transylvanian castle throws a Halloween party, with Romanian DJs and vampires, a flock dressed up, that is. While no real fanged-feeding creatures of the undead have been spotted here, who knows what could happen when you celebrate Halloween at the castle, or even visit it during a full moon. The Werewolves and Witches Castle outside of Salzburg in Austria. A medieval castle is nothing out of the ordinary across this continent that's filled with them in almost every single country. But the Muscham Castle in Utternberg outside of Salzburg is truly a site of horror that's considered one of Europe's most haunted castles. It doesn't help that it's surrounded by acres and acres of dense forest where, even though the famous saying goes, if a tree falls in the forest when no one else is around to hear it, does it make a sound? Should actually be, if anyone screams from Muscham Castle, would anyone even hear? As so, that's what happened during the barbaric witch hunts of 1675. Over 100 people who were accused of being witches got beheaded in this castle, which gave its nickname the Witches' Castle. The wild imaginations of Austrian locales amplified their fears, originating from the quickly spreading plague and post-war famine. This mass hysteria resulted in a roundup of orphaned children, the homeless and beggars to be trialed within the castle walls for being witches. Few escaped, and those who did manage had their hands cut off. Then, some centuries after the witch trials, animals such as cattle and deer were creepily found slaughtered with their mutilated bodies laid out around the castle grounds. This led to assumptions amongst the town folks that werewolves were the moonlight malefactor, and thus a delirium of accusations resulting in the roundup of people getting tortured in the castle's dungeons. Today, Muscham Castle is open for everyone to visit, including the torture chambers. For those that have a penchant for seeking the supernatural, you can actually book an overnight stay there. If you do, keep an ear out for the screams that still linger from the witch trials, or so is rumored by the townsfolk, as well as unexplainable shadows lurking around the castle, as reported by the castle's staff.
If you enjoy the video, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to support us, share it to your bestie.